This morning to talk more about human trafficking in Kern County and what it looks like here locally is Kern County Sheriff Donna Youngblood. Sheriff, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
Let's talk a little bit, before we get into this new task force, let's just talk a little bit about the problem of human trafficking in Kern County. We know that human trafficking exists everywhere in the nation, but here in Kern County, we've seen an uptick when we've seen this become a very big issue compared to other areas surrounding us. Why is that?
There's a lot of reasons. You know, we've had this for years. The motels, specifically the ones on Union Avenue, were used for trafficking, and we've individually been working these cases. The task force is coming together so we can all work together. We can keep the public apprised of what to look for, so that they report what potential human trafficking. You know, we live in a time when it's easier to cross the border. So once you get an 11, 12-year-old across that border, you now own them because they have nobody else to turn to. So you can traffic them, you can turn them over to a trafficker. We know that the social media has driven a lot of this because we have kids on there that are really naive, and they get used and they can get trafficked.
Is that one of the reasons why, specifically like with social media, I mean, is that one of the reasons why you think that we have seen an increase? And why now? Why start the task force now? No question that social media has driven this, and the reason now is why not now? I know we have a pandemic, I know we have limited resources, but this is critical. These are children that once they're trafficked, once they get into that environment, most of them never come back, and we lose them to a life of crime or drugs or early death. So I think it's incumbent, it's our job, and I think the DA and the other chiefs and we're all on board with our partners to minimize the impact of human trafficking. When we talk about coronavirus, it's affecting all people in Kern County in some way, shape, or form, whether or not they're infected, they know someone who is infected, or their business has been, they have come into close contact at their business or school and so forth. I want to talk about how this is impacting the sheriff's office. A couple days ago, you said that the sheriff's office is going to limit responding to in-person calls unless it is life-threatening, and you've encouraged people to file reports online. How has this impacted your office specifically?
Yeah, first of all, we're down staffing to begin with. Then the pandemic came along that really threw a wrench in this. You know, every day we evaluate where we're at. I got the call 4 o'clock this morning from the undersheriff that we had 50 detention deputies approximately yesterday that tested positive. That really causes us some problems because we have inmates in custody that we have to isolate and keep away from this pandemic, and bringing the officer to work with coronavirus helps spread it. So we're really in a tough spot right now.
I want to specifically talk about this variant too. It is highly transmissible, so therefore that's one of the reasons why you saw again 50 detention deputies test positive in a single round just yesterday. At what point do you have to say we've got to really restructure how we staff calls, going to calls, life-threatening calls, and in the prison, in jail?
Well, we saw this coming, and that's why we've been preparing our response. You know, the deputies are still going to respond. They're still going to take the information over the phone. If they don't need to contact you personally, they won't contact you because we don't want to infect you, nor do we want you to infect us, at least to a minimum. So we saw this coming, and this is just another way to help us transition through this pandemic, because I believe that we're getting close to the end. This virus is obviously less lethal. It's easier transmittable, but if you look at the history of pandemics, this may be the right direction that we're going.
There's a lot of people who hear this and hear that they're not responding. The sheriff's office is not going to respond to calls unless it is life-threatening, and they may start to think that this is threatening public safety.
Yeah, we're still responding.
Okay.
We are still going to, if you call, we're still going to respond. We may not come to your door. We may take the information over the phone, but we're still going to respond. If there's a suspect we're looking for, we'll be in the neighborhoods. We're not going to minimize that.
It's just in a different way.
In a different way until we can transition through this, so that if I lose 50 patrol deputies, you won't get anybody to come. So this is necessary for us to do this so that when you call with a 911 emergency, we have somebody to respond.
But how does something like losing 50 patrol deputies just like that, or 50 detentions deputies just like that, impact the rest of the workforce? So I mean, that is a percentage, a good percentage of your workforce.
It is. It's we have approximately 225 detention deputies right now that are working. So when you lose 50, you have to take people from somewhere else in the organization that have worked in the jail before and put them in there temporarily to get us through this. So we'll be meeting this morning probably at 7 o'clock and with Plan C or D or wherever we're at now, but to get through this.
I want to talk about yesterday at the Bakersfield Fox Theater. You were able to honor fallen Deputy Phillip Campas with a star on the Walk of Fame. It's actually right next to your star on the Walk of Fame. Talk a little bit about what that means to you.
Yeah, it meant a great deal to me. Phillip's star is the most important one down there because of why it's there. You know, when this first started, I gave Angela Barton from Barton Marketing a call. She's the president of the Current Law Enforcement Foundation. I said, how can we do this? Let's have a fundraiser so that we can do this. And a young man named Chris Branson stepped up and said, I got this. So we didn't have to do anything. Once we got started, it went rather quickly. His family was there yesterday. It was a good occasion. It wasn't necessarily a sad occasion to honor a great man, a great family, and a great loss to our county.
Yeah, and again, that will always be there in front of the Bakersfield Fox Theater. Sheriff Youngblood, we're out of time. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.